Stephen, Smith, Woods, and Doherty. God bless them. That's what this is all about. Admiral Mullen, I'd like to direct my questions to you. Within the Department of Defense, was there an after-action review or report that was done, and did you read it?
There always is, and I haven't seen it, no.
My understanding, there isn't a report, and for you to come to the conclusions that you did without reviewing such a report, or if there is a review, or is such a review or report, is something the committee wants to further explore. It seems odd and mysterious there is no such report, and that you would not have reviewed that. Did the ARB ever talk to Lieutenant Colonel Stephen Gibson?
We did not.
Did you or anybody in the ARB speak with anybody from the Office of Security Cooperation located at the embassy?
We were in touch with and spoke with, actually interviewed the defense attaché.
But not within the Office of Security Cooperation. What about, who is Colonel George Bristol?
I don't know.
He is the commander of Joint Special Operations Task Force Trans-Sahara, directly responsible for the Office of Security Cooperation, and was not interviewed by the ARB. Did you ever speak with Rear Admiral Richard Landolt, Director of Operations for AFRICOM?
Not directly, no.
And nobody within the ARB did as well?
No, but actually, we were certainly aware of his input, having spoken with the Joint Staff and the Director of Operations on the Joint Staff.
He was the Director of Operations AFRICOM and was not interviewed by the ARB.
That's different from the Joint Staff.
Yes, I understand, and he was not interviewed. The Rear Admiral Brian Losey, do you know who he is? He's the Commander, Special Operations Command. At the time of Benghazi attack, did you or the ARB interview him?
We didn't.
Did you speak with Vice Admiral Charles Joe Leidig, Deputy to the Commander for Military Operations there at AFRICOM?
We spoke to actually General Ham, who was his boss.
But all of these people that I named off directly involved in the operations that night, and one of the concerns is you didn't read an after-action report or review. We don't even know if there's one that's been done. All of these people are directly involved. They were not engaged in this. What time did
I effectively, when I went back, particularly the second time, listened to an after-action report with respect to what happened that night.
We all know.
I stand by what they did and what I saw.
We understand that General Ham was in Washington, D.C. He was not at Stuttgart. He was not in Libya. These people were. What time did the Department of Defense ask Libya for permission for flight clearance?
Actually, General Ham was involved throughout. We're able to do that globally.
I understand he was involved, but he was not at Stuttgart. He was not in Libya. The question is, did the Department of Defense ever ask Libya for permission for flight clearance? I believe the answer is no.
Do I get to answer the questions?
Yeah, I'm asking if that's the correct.
What kind of flight clearance are you talking about?
So that we could fly our military assets over there. We already had permission to fly. The answer is no, correct?
Correct. Well, I take that back. The assets that came from Germany, specifically, we received permission to put them in.
That was the medical. Let me keep moving. When specifically did the United States military reach out to our NATO partners, given their close proximity? When did that happen?
Actually, I don't think it did.
And that's one of the concerns. The Italians had more than 50 tornadoes less than 35 minutes away from Benghazi. Even ask them. Never even asked line. You presided.
Mr. Chaffetz.
There's not a question in there, with all due respect, Admiral. Next thing, specifically, when did the United States jets, tankers, whatever you need to do a show of force, when were they called up? When were they put on alert?
They were specifically looked at as to whether or not they could get there in time, and they couldn't. That was the decision that was made.
Here's the problem.
Actually, their readiness status was upgraded.
You said that no planes were at the ready. That was your testimony. In Cairo, Admiral, with all due respect.
At the time of the attack, Mr. Chaffetz, the readiness status, there were no strip alert aircraft ready to go.
And that's a fundamental problem and challenge that I think we have to look at. In Cairo, hours earlier, the demonstrators had breached a wall, gone over a 12-foot wall. They had torn down the American flag. They put up an Al-Qaeda-type flag. It was Libya after the revolution on 9/11. We have been bombed twice prior. The British ambassador had the assassination attempt, and nobody is leaning forward. There's nobody that's ready to go. Were the closest assets truly in Djibouti? Is that where the closest assets were?
physically in Djibouti. I think it was between Djibouti and other places in Europe.
Europe actually had more assets that were closer than Djibouti,
yes,
correct?
Sir, they were not in a readiness condition to respond.
And that's what we fundamentally do not understand. Did you talk to anybody who did want to move forward? Was there anybody that you came across that did want to engage?
Everybody in the military wanted to move forward. Everybody in the military wanted to do as much as they can. There were plenty of assets moving. It became a physics problem, and it's a time and distance problem. Certainly that is who we are, to try to help when someone's in harm's way.
And the fundamental problem is they didn't. They didn't get there in time. I'm telling you, if you look at Glenn Doherty, you look at Lieutenant Tyrone, they ran to the sound of the guns. There are other people that wanted to go, like Lieutenant Colonel Gibson. I wish you or the ARB had spoken to them, because it is embarrassment to the United States of America that we could not get those assets there in time to help those people. We didn't even try. We didn't ask for permission. We didn't ask for fight clearances. We didn't even stand up the assets that we had in Europe. Didn't even try.
I just disagree with what you're saying, Mr. Chairman.
You just told me that they did not even get to the ready. They were never asked. You presided as the chairman of the Joint Chiefs when we bombed Libya for months. We did so in connection with our NATO partners, and you never asked those NATO partners to help and engage that night.
I actually commanded NATO forces, and the likelihood that NATO could respond in a situation like that was absolutely zero.
Mr. Chairman, I would ask that Ms. Beers be given